topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
What's working on purpose anyway? Each week, we ponder the answer to this question. People ache for meaning and purpose at work, to contribute their talents passionately and know their lives really matter. They crave being part of an organization that inspires them and helps them grow into realizing their highest potential. Business can be such a force for good in the world, elevating humanity. In our program, we provide guidance and inspiration to help usher in this world we all want, working on purpose. Now, here's your host, Dr. Elise Cortez.
Welcome back to the Working on Purpose program, which has been brought to you with passion and pride since February of 2015. Thanks for tuning in this week. Great to have you. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. Most leaders are sitting on untapped human energy, and I help them unlock it. I'm an organizational psychologist, logotherapist, workforce advisor, and the founder of the Gusto Now movement. But the title I really live by is much simpler. I simply traffic in energy, not the surface level motivation of another employee engagement initiative, but the deeper force, what I call gusto, the life force for performance that drives commitment, perseverance, and genuine ownership of a shared mission and the clients we serve. You can learn more about us and how we can work together at gusto-now.com or my personal site, elisecortez.com. With us today is Joshua Lifrak. He's the Director of Performance and Coaching at Limitless Minds, a mental performance consultancy. Over his career, he has worked with mental conditioning with several. Sorry, I'm going to put my glasses on. I can't see what I've written here. This is crazy. Okay, over his career, he has worked with mental conditioning with IMG Academy, working with Major League Baseball, National Basketball Association, and National Football League in various mental skills training capacities. Amazing background. You'll hear more about it in just a second. He's the author of Win Today, 6 Steps to Mental Resilience, Peak Performance, and a Thriving Life, which we'll be talking about today. He joins us from Sarasota, Florida. Josh, welcome to Working on Purpose.
Thanks, Elise. I appreciate it. I'm so happy to be here today. Excited to get going.
I love this, and let's celebrate this thing that you brought into the world. And I do not know if you have children, but I can tell you that it's harder to bring a book into the world than it is a child. I've done both.
I have 2 kids, and I always say that being a father is the toughest, most rewarding job I've ever had in my life. I love it. So
it's really amazing. I'm so grateful too. I have one 23-year-old daughter, and she's my light. So. Well, I just sort of tantalized our listeners and viewers a little bit with your background, but if you could just start and open, what an amazing journey that you have had working with all these different sort of sports leagues. Can you share just a bit about your background?
Yeah, so I got into the space of sports psychology, mental training, mental conditioning, mental performance, whatever you want to call it. I got into that right around 2003, 2004. I did a master's degree up at beautiful Ithaca College in upstate New York. Go Bombers! And then had the privilege of working at IMG Academy down here in Bradenton, Florida. I'm in Sarasota, just north of us, for 10 years, and that's where you got exposed to the elites of the elites. And it was really kind of spectacular to be around people like Serena Williams and Kobe Bryant and, Dwayne Wade or Thierry Henry or Eli Manning or, Russell Wilson. Just name an athlete and they seem to find their way to that academy to train. And what really struck me is that here we were mental skills people. And at that time, in the world, I mean, this is 2000, this is the early 2000s. So sports psychology wasn't as big as it is now. And the mental training aspect wasn't as big now. And back then there was this fallacy of the only people that need mental training are the ones who are a little bit messed up.
Yeah.
They need help. Mm-hmm. But what we saw was the elites of the elites, the ones that are in the Hall of Fame, they were running up to us to be, hey, this is a competitive advantage. How can I train my mind more? What are the things I can do? This is what I already do to train my mind. What else can I do? And so it was this really amazing realization for us at IMG that you don't have to be sick to get better. right?
Mhm.
There's mental performance is all about, hey, you can train that big noggin on top of your shoulders, right? You can train that. And when you train that, there's going to be good things that come about it, and you're going to have that competitive advantage. I wrote this book specifically because of that. I wrote Win Today because these tools that elite athletes were getting. I worked with the Chicago Cubs for 5 years and part of their front office, and it wasn't. I'm sitting there and we're teaching these athletes about the mental skills, and I'm like, this is 40 people, this is 25 people, this is only 300 players in the organization. We should bring this out and democratize it for humanity, because there's so much more that we can do as human beings. And one of those things that we can do is literally, you can train your mind to live a life by design versus a life by default.
Couple of things, Josh. This is so great. What a great start. So excited to have you on. First, I want to celebrate this idea of these players flocking to you, that they understood that for them to really realize their best, more of their highest potential, they need to be catalyzed. And of course, I do this kind of work with the leaders as well. And I want to celebrate that because, to your point, once upon a time, not that long ago, a coach was something you gave to somebody who was, kind of failing and flailing kind of thing. Not somebody who was trying to thrive. So I want to celebrate this idea. And for me, I have 3 coaches that I work with. I want to be catalyzed to my best. Second, I want to also just celebrate and imagine with you what it must have been like to be able to be around so many people that are literally operating at a much higher level of their own potential than the masses, and what that must be like to be around. So just kind of give us what's that like to be around people like Serena Williams, et cetera.
Yeah, it's really amazing, because what ends up happening is you get to observe, and you just get to observe the ability of these people to not be subjects of their own emotion. They get to this place where they go, hey, listen, this isn't working. What do I need to change to fix it? Now, there might be an emotional outburst, absolutely, but they're really quick to get over themselves and get back into what's important now. What do I got to focus on? Do I need to focus on my feet? Do I need to throw the ball higher? What do I need to do? And so that is one of the things that really jumped out at me. I read about this in the chapter Stop the Storm in my book, about just kind of how do we get over this negativity? Because I think that's one of the things that, as human beings, we're naturally negative. You know this from being a psychologist, the negativity bias. It's a survival mechanism. So what we saw from those that absolutely thrived in the world was, yeah, they still got negative. They were human beings. Guess what? They're going to, even though they're elite athletes and they're Hall of Famers, they're going to have that negativity. But guess what else? They got over it really fast. And then they made their choices based on logic versus emotion. So I think that was one of the biggest things that kind of jumped out at me pretty quickly. And then, the other part of that, Elise, is that the professional sports is a full-time. I'm not talking about 9 to 5 full-time. I'm talking 24 hours a day, scheduling rest, right?
Wow.
Like, sleep is scheduled. My nap is scheduled. My food is scheduled. Like, that is the level of obsession that the absolute elites have. And so an obsession is not a bad word, to be honest with you, if you're trying to be great, right? A friend of mine, Trevor Moawad, in his book, wrote about the illusion of choice, which Nick Saban so famously made famous. And to be elite, you only have certain choices that you have, right? There's certain things you just can't do, and there's certain things you have to do.
Yes, indeed. I will celebrate. I know that Trevor was your cherished mentor and guiding light, and so I just want to celebrate him with you together as well. And how wonderful that you had him, and that how important it is for any of us to have mentors and find people who can guide us into our highest or our higher being. So I know you wrote this book, and I want to celebrate this too, to help people, through their tough times, so that they don't have to feel overwhelmed and debilitated by them. And who's going through a tough time, listeners and viewers? Any of you going through something like that? I don't know. I think we can all use a helping hand here. So I wanted to celebrate that, especially now. I think people, as we go through this new surge of technology with AI and robotics, I think a lot of people are really feeling lost and scared and uncertain and don't know what their place is. So I appreciate that you brought this book in now.
Well, I appreciate that, Elise. And to be clear, right? if you are having some struggles or tough times, great. Read the book. It's going to help.
Yeah.
If you're already kicking butt, read the book. It's going to help.
Right.
Because the whole key is that and this is what I wrote about in one of the chapters called Choose Growth. Like, we always have that opportunity to grow, whether we're struggling or whether we're crushing it. You know, the beast can get beastier is oftentimes what we say, right? And so that's a, you know, that's a thing too. Now, the other thing that you kind of nailed it there, Elise, and I don't know if you've heard this term before, but VUCA, it's a military term, and it means volatile, uncertain, chaotic, and ambiguous.
Yeah.
And as I've been going around talking to different industries and different groups recently, the level of VUCA, I don't know if there's a scale on VUCA, but if there was, it'd be off the charts right now.
Yeah, definitely feel that too.
This world right now that we are in is super uncertain. It is chaotic. We don't know where we are. Sometimes it's a little bit unclear, and without a doubt, it changes day to day, and so it's volatile as well. So you know, this book, that was one of the bigger reasons that I wrote it too. Was, hey, how do we manage this? Yeah. You know, and what I kind of figured out and what I think really works well for people is to just take it day by day. So, and this really came out of COVID. I'm not sure where you're located, but I'm down here in Florida. So for us, COVID was just a different experience than I think the rest of the nation and maybe even the world, where it wasn't as restricting. I can vividly remember, like, after 6 weeks, they reopened the beaches and they're like, whatever. And I was,
oh, wow, that is definitely very different than what it was in Dallas. Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for us, like, that was a real eye opener, because here was this moment of like, well, I don't know what today's going to bring. I have no clue. As a matter of fact, I was working for the New York Mets at the time, and we were all home, except for the Major League Baseball team and the people that were responsible for having the team play baseball on a daily basis in their bubble. And the director of HR called me. She's like, we need help. Our whole organization needs help. This is really, really tough. New York, it was super, super tough. And I can't even imagine. But that's where I came up with the concept of, like, we just got to win today. Let's figure that out. How do we win right here, right now? Because you can. And that's what a winning streak starts with, Elise, is like, it starts with today. You win one, and then then we reset. We get back to mile zero, and then we reset again, and we win that one. And we just keep going, and we can just make it a little bit more, how do you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time.
Right. Yeah. Wonderful. Well, so what I want to do here is I want to introduce for the audience here your 6 simple steps that you talk about in order to achieve this mental fortitude. So I'm going to introduce them, and then I want to see if we can get through as many as we can, where you help us better understand what these 6 steps are and give a little bit of flavor to them, as well as some ways that you offer that in each of the end of the chapters, some exercises to be able to sort of bring the stuff to life. So listeners and viewers, the 6 steps that Josh has in his book is: define your story, build bonds, you are here, stop the storm, choose growth, and mile zero. So let's start with define your story. Help us understand that step a little bit better.
So years ago, I happened to go to this phenomenal beneficial self-development workshop. It was like 4 days. And you talked about wanting a coach, Elise, and saying how important coaches are. Well, this was one of the more impactful moments for me. And one of the things that we talked about in there was this kind of understanding of how we become, right? How we become whatever we want to become in the world. And most people think that you do a bunch of things. You're active, you do a bunch of things, then you're going to get a bunch of stuff. Like I work really hard, I get a bunch of money, and then I become rich, right? For example. And what was really interesting was they kind of debunked that, and they kind of threw a hand grenade in it. And what they said is really, and this was such an aha moment for me, it's you got to become the thing first before you're going to do anything, before you're going to get anything. So it became, instead of do, have, be, it became be, do, have. And that's what define your story is all about. Who are you choosing to be in this world? Who are you choosing to be today? And are you defining that really clearly every single day? I happen to live here, like I said, in Sarasota, Florida. We have a nice little, I live on a little island in Philippi Creek. Yeah, yes, I'm a motivational speaker who lives down by the river, right? But I walk my dog every morning, who's sitting right under my feet right now. But he and I, that morning walk, it's such a good clarity for me, right? It's that get outside, breathe some fresh air. And we cross this little bridge. And as soon as I cross that bridge, I decide on my intention for the day. Not what I want to accomplish. Maybe what I want to accomplish is in the back of my mind, but it's about who do I have to be in order to accomplish those different things. So I just choose, okay, I'm going to be. Today, I was up in Atlanta working last night. We did a executive retreat for 30 different CEOs, and then we went to a brilliant soccer game there in Atlanta. And then so I got home late, and I got up really early to fly back to make sure that I was on time for this. And so, what I decided today for my being is I was going to be peaceful. I was simply going to be peaceful today. And I was kind of just and then, okay, that creates a picture in your mind, right? What does peaceful look like for me? What are the actions that are going to go up with that? Okay, well, that means like when we land in Sarasota Airport and the 3 people shove their way in front of me, I'm going to be, all right, cool. Yeah. We're going to roll with it, like, so it can be that. So that's what really define your story is the simple act of just choosing who you want to be every single day.
I want to say a little bit more about that and help our listeners and viewers consider that for themselves. But let's grab our first break. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. We've been on air with Joshua Lifrak. He's the Director of Performance and Coaching at Limitless Minds, a mental performance consultancy. We've been diving into his book that shares 6 steps toward mental resiliency. After the break, we're going to say a bit more about this first one here, defining your story, and then we'll go on to the next. We'll be right back.
Dr. Elise Cortez is a management consultant specializing in meaning and purpose, an inspirational speaker and author. She helps companies visioneer for greater purpose among stakeholders and develop purpose-inspired leadership and meaning-infused cultures that elevate fulfillment, performance, and commitment within the workforce. To learn more or to invite Elise to speak to your organization, please visit her at elisecortez.com. Let's talk about how to get your employees working on purpose. This is Working on Purpose with Dr. Elise Cortez. To reach our program today or to open a conversation with Elise, send an email to Elise, A-L-I-S-E, at elisecortez.com. Now, back to Working on Purpose.
Thanks for staying with us and welcome back to Working on Purpose. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez, as I am dedicated to helping create a world where organizations thrive because their people thrive and are led by inspirational leaders that help them find and contribute their greatness. And we do business that betters the world. I keep researching and writing my own books. So one of my latest came out. It's called The Great Revitalization, How Activating Meaning and Purpose Can Radically Enliven Your Business. And I wrote it to help leaders understand today's very dynamic and discerning workforce. What do they want and need from you to give their best and want to stick around? And then I provide you 22 best practices to equip your culture and your leadership to provide that for them. You can find my books on Amazon or my personal site, elisecortez.com. If you are just joining us, my guest is Joshua Lifrak. He's author of Win Today, 6 Steps to Mental Resilience, Peak Performance, and a Thriving Life. So going back to that first step, Josh, I wanted to first call out something that you share in your book that I think as a mother, as a parent, I was so drawn to, and that is the story that you go on to say that when you were 7, your mom left the family to go and pursue a PhD, and your dad then just picked up and he became the parent. And as you say in your book, he never missed a beat, didn't complain, just did it. And talk about defining your story. I just wanted to get your thoughts on what that was like.
Yeah, so my dad was one of the funnest people always that I can remember. He was always just making sure that we were active, we were doing different things, whether it be taking us to Boston Red Sox games. We lived in New York, but he was a Boston Red Sox fan. So even though we lived 90 minutes from Yankee Stadium, we would drive 5 hours to Fenway Park to see games.
Yes, you said that in your book. Yep.
Yeah. So, like he was just like I use this quote with him. I recently he recently passed away, and so I was writing about him, and the quote that I use is a quote that I live by. But as I thought back to it more, it really kind of resonated that it was really my dad who lived this quote, and the quote is by the great college basketball coach John Wooden, the great UCLA coach, won 10 championships in 12 years. And his quote was, "Things turn out best for those that make the best out of the way things turn out." I'll say that again.
Wow.
I know that's a mouthful, but things turn out best for those that make the best out of the way things turn out. And that's just how my dad lived. Whatever came his way, it's like, okay, let's figure it out. Let's just have fun with it. Let's make the best out of it. Okay. Oh yeah, we can laugh about that. He just so that way of being for him was just, to talk about define your stories, like, I'm not going to live a negative life. It's just, he wasn't going to do that. Even if bad things were happening to him. He grew up in Fall River, Massachusetts. If you've ever been to Fall River, really a beautiful town, but a tough town too, and we were recently, I'll tell you a quick story. This explains my dad's humor. We were there last summer, 2 summers ago, and he was giving us a tour of the town because we were up in Maine vacationing, and he happened to be down in Massachusetts. So we all went down to Fall River, and we took a tour. He was driving us around. He's like, "See that church right there? That's where we all went to confession. For church. All the young kids and the teenagers, we would always go to that church for confession." And so we said, "Dad, well, why would you go to that specific church?" And he goes, "Oh, the priest didn't speak English." Right. So it was like, it was great.
Right? Understand. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's who he was. And, he was just a great man, and I learned a ton from him.
That's so beautiful. So wonderful. Both of my parents have passed too, so I can appreciate that. So just to kind of sprinkle a little bit here, one of the things I appreciate about just, I read a lot of books. I read a book every single week for my podcast, and the structure of your book is very tight. And I like that you provide the 6 steps. You take us through those steps, and then you give us these exercises at the end to be able to use and live this step. So the define your story exercise, this idea of taking a moment in the morning, just like you said, to embrace the quiet of the morning and think about yourself at your best kind of thing. The second step that I thought was really, really interesting related to that was to set aside your phone and observe 3 beautiful things. Something maybe physical that you can see, take in and enjoy the beauty. It's in the mind, an idea, a moment, or a memory, and visualize it and embrace its richness. I've seen very few people that I've seen, frankly, especially as a man, that understand that. And so, to me, what that's really important for, you're priming your mind, of course, but also too, what you're doing is you're elevating your emotional energy. And so I just wanted to celebrate that this is part of what you're putting forth as an exercise that you're teaching people.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's just kind of natural for me. I'm not sure. I probably learned it along the way in some facet or form, but I just started to realize, certainly recently as I've gotten older, like, there's so much beauty. You know what it was? I know what it was, not believe. It was when my mother passed away. My mother passed away in 2015. And there's this great poem about, like, I'm the breeze in the trees. I can't remember.
Yes.
What I'm talking about, right?
I know exactly. It's beautiful.
And so I just started looking at the trees and the breeze in the trees. And I was like, this is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And it's so small. And I'm going to encourage all the listeners, like, when was the last time you watched the wind play in trees? Like, how ridiculous. Like, I still don't understand how wind occurs. I have no clue. It's a miracle. Like, just this, I mean, maybe it's because we're traveling at like 59,000 miles, like at the, hurling through space on this spinning orb in the middle of the universe. But, like, it's like this incredible thing that it's like, how many people actually stop and look at that? Right now, my obsession is, again, I live in Florida, and I have a back patio. It overlooks Philippi Creek, and I have a palm tree in my backyard, and there's a palm frond that's growing out of it. And so my obsession recently is just like, ooh, what's new about the palm frond today? It's opening up a little bit brighter. It's like, I don't know. It says, but these they're available to everybody, anytime, anywhere.
100%.
You can stop, but how often do we not do that? And we get sucked down by this negativity over and over and over again. And most of the time it's in our dang phone. But like, how do we, so like, get out, look, live, see with your eyes, right? The Buddha was asked at the end of his life, what's the secret to life? He said, I'm awake. Be awake.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so I would say a couple things. I think what you're also referring, there's a song, a country song that also says, "I'm the wind in your hair," or something like that. But I think that you're also referring to when the memory of your
I
mother.
don't know country at all. Maybe there's a hip hop song though. I would
Yeah,
love
okay. Well, it's probably been done a few times over, but two, I mean, I'm like, so for me, when I'm a runner, when I'm out running, I'm always amazed. Like I'm running along and there a leaf comes down from a tree, and I'm like, oh,
Mm.
the tree is playing with me. That's so fun, right? I like that kind of ability to, and it's not just our eyes, right? We can feel it, right? We can taste it. So that's part of what I teach, Josh, is really helping people to really use their senses to connect and be, elated by the world, and therefore elevate those beautiful higher emotions that allow them to visualize that greater sense of self that they're coming into.
Yeah, and I think you just kind of nailed it there too, Elise, is that like we can have life be a playground,
Absolutely.
you
That's
know?
the language that we use here at Gusto now, for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So let's keep going here. That was just the first one, ladies and gents, and listeners and viewers. We were just on the first step here. The second one, of course, to building mental resiliency and such, is building bonds. And I really appreciate, again, this is where you also talk a lot about your mentor, but let's hear your take on building bonds.
Yeah, so this kind of concept hit me when I was working for the New York Mets, and it was pre-COVID. So it was 2000. It was the 2020 spring training. So it was right before COVID hit. We're talking about February. And at the time, there was a player with the Mets, a gentleman named Tim Tebow. For those non-sports fans, Tim Tebow was the quarterback, Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, national champion with the University of Florida. Then he went on to play in the NFL, and then he went back and he was going to try and become a professional baseball player. He's very famous for his faith, and he's also a TV personality. So a lot of people do know him, especially down here in the state of Florida. You say Tim Tebow, everybody knows him. And Tim was in. We were talking about the negativity bias, which we touched on earlier, at least, and in talking about what the brain's main job is, which is to keep us alive and keep us comfortable. And Tim pulled me aside afterwards. He said, "Listen, I think you're missing something here. I think, yeah, I think it's to keep alive and stuff like that. But I also think it's to create connections and to create community and be together with others, which makes sense, right? Because if your brain's trying to survive, strength in numbers, right? Like sardines in the, they make the big pool, right? So yeah, it totally makes sense. But it hit me like nobody's ever done anything great alone.
Right.
Right. Like Edmund Hillary had, Tenzing Norgay, right? Like they climbed Mount Everest. He didn't do it alone, right? Even though it's like a solitary thing. Like even, great marathoners, great tennis players, great golfers, they all have a team of people that are surrounding them. And so, I mean, I would challenge any of the listeners, tell me one person who's done something great alone, like really. And so the whole concept of building bonds, it's like, it's just going to enhance your life. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things, and I also think back to, I'm forgetting the researcher's name, but he's out of Harvard, and he talked about the happiness advantage is the name of his book. I forget his. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think it's Sean Eckhor or something.
Yeah, that's it. And he talks about there's a formula to happiness they found, and one of the things is random acts of kindness, like reaching out to somebody and just doing something kind for them. And that once I read that, we were at IMG when I first read that, and what we started doing is having the athletes just text somebody that was important in their life, and their energies went up, their body language changed, their vibe of everything that they were dealing with changed. And then sure enough, those people that got that random text, like, "Hey, I really appreciate you. Thank you for coaching me when I was 10 years old. I'm really thriving now, and I've learned a lot of lessons from you." Like something like that. Those people would be touched, moved, and inspired, and they would respond back. And man, now we're creating a different world.
No doubt. Oh, a couple of things on this, Josh. This is so good. I'm not going to let you go. Like, this is so good. So you also talk about gratitude too, and so reaching out and thanking people and for when they've helped you is part of one of the exercises that you offer to us. And so you're passing on and cascading that beautiful energy. It ripples into the communities, and I love doing that too. My daughter was like, she's used to this. She's like, "Okay, Mama, you do your thing." But just simply, like on Saturday, I was speaking for a college here in Dallas, and afterwards I treated myself to a nice Indian lunch. And there were three young men that came in. They appeared to be like in their mid-20s. And I watched them. Of course, I was eating alone, so I watched them, and they came together. I mean, they were what I call eating with gusto, and they were enjoying each other and connected. So I knew I was going to say something. When I finished and paid my bill, I came up to them. I said, "Excuse me, I just wanted to celebrate. I see you all eat with gusto, and you really enjoy your food." And one of the first guy that had come in goes, "We do eat with gusto. We do like eating." And I said, I'm loving watching your connection, how you seem to really enjoy each other. And I looked at each other like, yeah, I like these guys. And they were like genuinely appreciative that I had stopped. And they all said, thank you. Thank you very much. So simple, right? But it was just simply, I just couldn't help it. It was such a beautiful thing to witness.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that like listen, I was talking to somebody about it the other day. I get teary eyed when I watch like dog food.
Me too. Oh yeah.
Right. So for me, the most moving thing in the world is when kindness.
Yeah,
And so,
absolutely.
I don't know how many people do what you do, Elise. I do that junk all the time where I'm just like, oh, I love your dress. And like somebody's walking by and I don't want anything from them. I'm just like, that dress is awesome. I'm just going to comment. Oh, your shoes are amazing. Whatever. Right. And just like these little things or just really appreciating somebody's hard work or whatever. And just, it's not that hard, people. It's not that hard to do, but why don't we do it? I mean, that's my question. And I think the reason I think that we don't do it is because we're trying to protect ourselves, right? We know that's what we're trying to overcome. Well, that's what the 6 steps really, really are fighting more than anything else, right? That's like the opponent is really negativity and that negativity bias and living small. That's the opponent. And then that's what we're trying to beat every single day. And if we do the 6 steps, we win.
Yeah. I want to say more about what you just said there because it's going to build just beautifully onto the next step, which is you are here. But let's grab our last break before we hit that. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. We were on the air with Joshua Lifrak. He's the Director of Performance and Coaching at Limitless Minds, a mental performance consultancy. We've been getting into some of the steps in his book. After the break, we will go into the third one, which is You Are Here. We'll be right back.
Dr. Elise Cortez is a management consultant specializing in meaning and purpose, an inspirational speaker and author. She helps companies visioneer for greater purpose among stakeholders and develop purpose-inspired leadership and meaning-infused cultures that elevate fulfillment, performance, and commitment within the workforce. To learn more or to invite Elise to speak to your organization, please visit her at elisecortez.com. Let's talk about how to get your employees working on purpose. This is Working on Purpose with Dr. Elise Cortez. To reach our program today or to open a conversation with Elise, send an email to Elise, A-L-I-S-E, at elisecortez.com. Now, back to Working on Purpose.
Thanks for staying with us and welcome back to Working on Purpose. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. As you know by now, this program is dedicated to empowering and inspiring you along your journey to realize more of your potential. I mentioned my last book in the last break, The Great Revitalization, which contains 22 practices to help you elevate the culture of your organization. What I did for you is I created a simple 3-page assessment that you can pull off my site, gusto-now.com, and it will tell you the extent to which you are actually achieving that, what I call destination workplace. If you are just now joining us, my guest is Joshua Lifrak. He's the author of Win Today, 6 Steps to Mental Resilience, Peak Performance, and a Thriving Life. So before the break, we were just sort of talking about this notion of playing with the world and enjoying this and letting ourselves go and such. And I think it really does dovetail nicely to your third step. You are here. And there's such beauty in being able to achieve that presence.
Yeah, presence is a gift. We used to say in Chicago, this was a Joe Madden thing, be present, not perfect. Because because you're going to have a better chance of being perfect when you're present, and the brain has this amazing ability to time travel, but the execution of tasks, the performance is in the here and the now. So that's the whole key. Is you are here is all about how do we get present? How do we be where our feet are? I don't think I didn't tell this story in the book, but the last year that I was with in professional baseball, I was with the New York Mets in 2021. And I knew at the end of that season, I was going to be stepping away from baseball. I had lived I literally looked at my Marriott account yesterday because I was staying in a Marriott, and I've spent 6 years of my life in a Marriott. I spent over 200 days a year on the road working in professional baseball. Again,
It's
to be
amazing.
elite, there's a lot of sacrifice, right? And so at the end of after COVID and at the end of 2020, I knew I was going to be leaving. And what I used to do, because I wanted to be with my family. I wanted to see my sons grow up. I wanted to be with my wife. Like, this is it, you know? So my value system said family was more important than winning in baseball for me. So I kind of shifted my focus, but I knew like what I was doing was pretty special, right? It's a really unique thing to work in Major League Baseball. And so, every stadium, once I made that decision in my mind that we would go to, I would make sure that prior to doing batting practice and getting everybody, we would always show up early and guys would be stretching and stuff like that. I would take off my shoes and I would walk barefoot in the outfields of all the different stadiums. The best grass, just so you know, in the major leagues is San Diego. Unbelievable. That field is like perfect. At Dodger Stadium is close second. And then, my father grew up a Red Sox fan. So, of course, when we went to Fenway Park, it was really, really special to walk around there barefoot. And, really a great moment. But you are here. What I learned is that you can train that. You can really train that. Like, that's one of the easiest things actually to train. All it takes is effort. And so I was lucky enough to come in contact with a woman named Dr. Amishi Jha. She is at the University of Miami, and she did a ton of research on mindfulness practice. And the reason I think people get a little bit, I don't want to say scared, but they get off put by mindfulness is because most of the research out of Harvard, all the benefits to get, lower heart rate, more focus, happier, all those types of things. That research was on 45 minutes a day of meditation.
Wow.
That's like really hard to do.
Yeah.
I don't think there's, unless you're a monk or whatever, it's pretty tough to take that time to do that, especially in our busy lives. And so, but she was tasked, Dr. Jha was tasked by the United States military to bring mindfulness to the Army. And what she found when she did the research and she pulled it apart and dug into it and did her own experiments and everything was she found that you could get about between 80 and 90% of the same effectiveness by just meditating for 10 minutes a day, 5 days a week. And what was really cool about that was that it didn't have to be concurrent. Like, if you didn't have 10 minutes in the morning, but you had 2 minutes, you could meditate for 2 minutes. And then in the evening, you meditate for 8, and it would still have the same benefit. So it was really cool. And then, so as soon as I met her and I read this stuff, I was like, I want to learn what this whole, and so I took the entire Cubs staff down to University of Miami, and we spent 4 days with her learning how to meditate and learning how to teach meditation. And it was great. And the thing that she taught us, which was really, really, really powerful, was being focused is all about the power of noticing. We don't think about it that way. We think about focus being like laser locked in and nothing's gonna, like, there's explosions going off and I'm still right here. It's not really that. What it is like you choose what you're gonna focus on, your intention. You get distracted, you notice your distraction, and then you reorient yourself back to your original intention. But that noticing piece is the whole key. That's where the money is. And so that's what you are here. That whole chapter is all about, is how to do that. We put a meditation in there. I'm going to have a workbook coming out in hopefully the fall. And in that workbook, we'll have even more meditations and probably some links to some audio that you can use on your own.
Well, I discovered meditation through one of my guests back in 2019, and frankly, it was Paul Skinner. So Paul, you're dear, I revere you. He's a British man, and he was so smart and so elegant and eloquent. And I said, he mentioned meditation, and he said, if you're not meditating, you should. And I was like, if you tell me to meditate, I'm going to do it just because of who you are. And I've been doing it since. But I would also add, in addition to this idea of, you are present, there's 2 other things that I do, the other practices that I do to help cultivate the idea of you are present. And one of them is to do improv. And the reason I do improv is because it does require you to be present and to really listen to your stage mates, to be present for them, and to set aside anything about performance or trying to be funny. It's not about trying to be funny per se, but it's about really being connected and in the moment. So that's the reason I take tango lessons. The other thing that I do for the similar reason, for a totally different result, is I take tango dance lessons. And if you don't know tango, if you've never really seen it or understand it, it's completely improvised dance, right? So in the way that it is your partner, the male, is the one that chooses the moves, and you are connected enough to him to follow him. And that requires tremendous just presence and connection. So I use both of those two practices to continue this idea of you are here.
Yeah, the improv stuff is phenomenal. A lot of times, actually, in our workshops with like Johnson and Johnson or Novartis or various big time pharmaceuticals that we work with, we will do some improv type games that help them understand. Okay, I'm here. Oh, that felt different. That's what it feels like to be here. Like a lot of people don't even know what it feels like to be locked in.
Right.
So that's one of those things, without a doubt. I love that. I love that you're doing that, Elise. That's hilarious. That's awesome.
It is wonderful. And and then what's really interesting, Josh, is we just I just finished the next level here, and somebody had us filmed. It was really interesting to watch us all on stage while you're doing that. One is I've seen myself speak many, many times. I've been a public speaker for so long. But it's quite another when you're actually on stage and you are creating a scene with your scene mates. But then sometimes it's like, wow, I said that, or he said that. That's pretty good, right? So this thing of you don't have no idea what's going to come out of your mouth. So it's just delightful.
Yeah. It's really, it trains your listening too.
Totally. And that's another reason that I do it. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think right now too, in our world, like listening is, if you can listen well, you are going to have a massive competitive advantage in the workforce.
It's one thing I appreciate that, Josh. I think in part because of the way that I've hosted the show for these 11 years, I've come to realize that when I'm talking with people very, 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 very often, I realize that they just continue talking and talk. And I say very, very, very little. And I don't know if that's because they're just not used to have somebody listen to them and then they just go for it. I don't know. But I've been amazed, like how many people, like if I spend like an hour with them, I might have said 6 words. It's crazy.
What does that say about me?
Well, you and I are having a very, very nice back and forth, Josh. You're good. Don't you worry. You're
out. But it's because you create this space for him. You create the space for him, and you ask great questions.
I love it. Thank you. I absolutely jam on this. I've been doing this for so long. So, okay, now I can't let you get off the show without talking about the stop the storm. I don't think any of us have a storm going on in our lives. Nope, none of us. So let's talk about that step.
Yeah. So again, this is what are we battling? What do we talk about? We're battling the negativity bias, right? And so one of the things that happens is your brain is boom, it's going to fire off, and it's going to be a little bit negative. It's going to be protective, and things are just going to pop in there. Well, stop the storm isn't about ignoring those things. It's about accepting them, understanding that they're there, and then choosing a different place to go. And I think that's one of the big things is like it's really tough to stop negative thoughts or stop, one of the phrases we use at Limitless Minds all the time is, and I'll say it PG, stop saying stupid stuff out loud. Right. And so, right, just putting that negativity out into the universe can be really, really painful. But what, I talk about here is getting to this logical place and not living in emotion, but living in logic. And so it's really hard to go from negative to positive. Like that a lot of times that's a hard jump. Like I always equate it. I try and create this picture for people. Like if you're driving in reverse and that's negativity, and somebody's like, "Hey, no, just be positive," and you slam the car into drive, your transmission is going to blow out. Like right. It's a really hard transition, and it feels fake and it feels phony, and it doesn't work a lot of the times. So there's that middle ground, and that middle ground is neutrality, is just dealing with what's so without creating a giant story behind it, right? It's just dealing with the facts and just without a big judgment on them. This is what's so, this is what I'm dealing with. And now I got a choice of how I want to handle it and how I want to move forward. If I'm going from A to B and the steps I'm taking are not working. Maybe I'm really negative. Well, now it's time to evaluate those steps and choose different steps to take. But it's really this place of neutrality, because when you're in neutrality, then you have a choice. Then you have a choice. When you're just dealing with the facts and you're getting into logic, you can decide where you want to go. Again, a life by decision, a life by design versus a life by default.
I appreciate too, in the exercises that you offer at the end of that chapter, is that you first say that we just simply need to notice our negativity and say it, to say it and think about it and write it down. So we recognize, I'm having these negative thoughts. And I think right there in and of itself, this idea of noticing your negative thoughts and writing them down, accepting that they're yours, they came from you. None of us is perfect. And what I also think is really important you wrote about in your book is just how strong that negativity bias is. And in part because it's what allows us to survive. It's what we notice the charging tiger coming toward us. Ooh, that's a negative thing coming our way. So I think it's important that we recognize that it has a place in our life and that we still have the capacity to move it into that neutral zone that you're talking about.
Without a doubt. And it was, this kind of, and I like that. I totally get what you're saying about, like negativity does have a place. And I'll use this example. We had the opportunity years ago when I was at IMG to spend some time out in Coronado, California with the Navy Special Forces group. They were checking in with us because we had IMG is this like crazy place, at least, where they're like 10 years ahead of everybody in terms of performance. It's insane. So
cool.
And it's a high school. I mean, like, what are they doing? It's incredible.
That's amazing.
But so the Navy SEALs came, and they one of the commanders, Commander Tom Chaby, came, and he spent some time with us, and he wanted us to come out to Coronado and hang out with them and just kind of learn a little bit more about what they're doing and see if there was anything that we could implement from IMG into their program. And one of the things they told us was that the selection process and the guys that succeed in getting through the selection process, the three, whatever it is, the BUDS program, it's what it's called. Sorry, basic underwater demolition. So they found that the guys who got through it and made the best Navy SEALs had two common characteristics. Number one was high confidence, which makes sense.
Right.
We're doing stuff that's really hard. Of course, these guys are going to be confident. But then the second was they had high anxiety as well. I said, well, that makes no sense. They said, it does, if you think about it, because these guys are the best of the best, and they're sitting there and they're constantly thinking somebody out there is getting better than me. So I better get back to work. And it wasn't anxiety that was debilitating. It was anxiety that was motivating.
Yeah, that drove them, that pushed them.
Got them into action. Yeah, absolutely. And so they said those were the guys that crushed it.
So amazing, Josh. It's crazy how fast this goes. So listeners and viewers, we didn't talk about two of the steps: choose growth and mile zero. You're just going to have to pick up the book and get it for yourself. But we've given you a nice little taste here, a little tantalizing taste of what's in the book. Josh, you probably know that this show is listened to by people around the world who care about trying to elevate themselves as individuals and as leaders and want to be able to grow and build their businesses. What would you like to leave them with?
What I'd like to leave them with is that transformation doesn't have to take a really long time. I think that's like I think people think that okay, if I'm going to transform, it's like the water the bamboo. It's going to take 5 years and da 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 da. Well, no, it can happen today, and the way that it happens today is you roll down the 6 steps, right? You define your story, you set that intention, you reach out, you build some bonds, you get really present. If you have negativity in your life, you address it and deal with it. You choose to grow a little bit more, and then guess what? Tomorrow you reset and you get back to mile zero, and here we go again. And that's how it can really happen. So that's what I would leave people with. So what's the journey of 1,000 steps start with? Right? Just one.
Get in motion. Yep.
There you go.
Well, really, really enjoyed reading your book, Joshua, and having you on the program. That's one of the great things about hosting this podcast is I meet amazing humans across the planet like you. So thank you for coming on Working in Purpose and sharing with us today.
Thanks, Elise, and thanks to everybody who took the time to subscribe to your amazing podcast and listen in. Appreciate you all.
Thank you. Listeners and viewers, you are going to want to learn more about Joshua Lifrak. He's in the work that he does at Limitless Minds and his new book, Win Today. So you can start by just going to his website. It's his name. It's Joshua, Joshua, Lifrak. It's Lifrak, joshualifrak.com. Last week, if you missed the live show, you can always catch it via recorded podcast. We were on air with futurist Rashad Tabakawala talking about his book, Rethinking Work. seismic changes in the where, when, and why. He shared how leaders can stay ahead by rethinking work and embracing transformation. From evolving organizational models to the new why behind work, he talked about what it takes to lead and thrive in the workplace and business of tomorrow. See you next week for another enlightening and elevating conversation. Let's continue leaning into discovering how to elevate your operating system as a leader and create destination workplaces where legendary business takes place. Let's work on purpose.
We hope you've enjoyed this week's program. Be sure to tune into Working on Purpose, featuring your host, Dr. Elise Cortez, each week on W4CY. Together, we'll create a world where business operates conscientiously, leadership inspires impassioned performance, and employees are fulfilled in work that provides the meaning and purpose they crave. See you there. Let's work on purpose.